Hello, guys. Welcome to Why Do I Love Twin Peaks? We're back again, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by my next guest, and I'll introduce her now to you all. It's Wendy. How are you, Wendy?
I'm doing well, Frank. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast today. I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you. You're really welcome. So, Wendy, first question I always ask everyone is this one. Wendy, when did you first discover Twin Peaks?
Well, I first came to discover Twin Peaks in the 90s. I was super fortunate to have that quintessential English teacher that really opened my eyes to a lot of lifelong pursuits. That assigned reading that year, what he assigned The Stranger by Camus, and Till We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis. And so this like he set me on this path of like existentialism and mythology, which led on to noir and myth and just the absurd interest that he just planted those seeds in me. And so when he came in, and everyone else in the class, the whole class adored him. So one Monday, I think it was a Monday, I think that Twin Peaks aired on Sunday nights in the US at the time. It's hard to remember. He came in and he had his Chase and Sanborn coffee that he had every morning, and you could smell it when he walked into the room. And he was like, Twin Peaks. And like everyone leaned in. And so that set forth this whole like lifelong pursuit and adoration of Twin Peaks. Um, it's funny though, like we were talking before we started recording, just like, looking back, hindsight is everything. And one thing, like when I was first introduced to Twin Peaks, I was, close to Laura Palmer's age. I was an adolescent, I was a teenager, and I just, with all of the girls, the women in Twin Peaks, I related to them. This was that coming of age period for me, and it seems like so many other people who have been lifelong Twin Peaks fans encounter Twin Peaks around the same period, late adolescence, early 20s, where you're forming your identity and shaping like your interests and who you are going to become. And that really just resonated with me and I think with a lot of other people. But back to that time, like being that age, um, I really identified with the teenage girl in the series, and I understood like the ferocity of a teenage girl's passion and will and determination. And I also understood how easy it is for teenage girls to really get in over their head, obviously Laura and Ronette and Donna, Shelley, and Norma too. I mean, you see later that Norma had some interesting choices. But yeah, so that connection at that time in my life just really like impressed me and has stayed with me. So that's how I discovered it.
So amazing. So, you had a lot of friends that watched it with you?
Yes, it's
Or
it's
did you
funny.
just watch it on your own or with the family, generally speaking? Or
No, like I was watching it by myself at that point. I mean, like our classroom, like everyone was into it, and I think I came into it late. Because he had already been watching the series. So you hop in, you start watching. But it was interesting like how when that took root. Like it carried me through. It was really later in college where it was almost like this magnetic force. Like all the Pixies ended up in the same place. Whatever that attraction was to Twin Peaks, it would attract that same circle to other places. And so, all of my best friends, we were all into Twin Peaks, boyfriends, and, all the whole culture really like we use Twin Peaks as really a touchstone and like a cultural reference for so many things. Like we quoted it all the time. It was like, oh, well, that's like blah blah blah. I mean, it was like who we would identify just like personalities with. I mean, it was really strong in all of us. I mean, we would in college would go down to the Long Branch Saloon, which was not really unlike the Roadhouse in a lot of ways. It was a very seedy, excellent place to just hang out and get loaded. And we would get loaded, and my friend Suzanne would start like dragging her leg and saying, "Where's my goddamn hot water, Carl?" I mean, it was like, it was like we used it for humor, we used it for grief, we used it for just to like describe like someone, and it was just such a big part of who we were as a friend group. Um, yeah, so that first, it's funny. It's like it was like, lighthearted and in our group, we were using it like the absurd and just the bizarro characters were so like striking to us, but you're intoxicated by that weirdness and that enigma of all of it. But somewhere like you intuit that there's a lot more going on there that's much deeper um than what it first appears, I guess. So
Yeah. Um, so how did you feel when you first watched that pilot episode? Were you really like captivated from like the first kind of opening bit? Did it really like draw you in really fast?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like love at first sight, I think. I mean, I'm sure there are different experiences, but yeah, I think it was like instant love at first sight and whatever hook it had. And I think it's, like I said, like, maybe a subconscious hook. You're not quite sure what it is when you first start embracing it, but you've got to have more of it. So yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, very
And
much had that kind of feeling, didn't it?
yeah,
I think most people were kind of divided. I think it's one of those shows that's very much I don't think there's a middle point. It's either you really love it or you really dislike it. I don't think there's much kind of in betweeny bit.
I
Um,
agree. It's not a
you
casual watch.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
You either really like have really get into it and you invest your time into it and watch the whole thing, or
several
you
times.
watch the first few scenes, or as soon as it gets kind of oddball or surreal, and you go, no, 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 switch it over. And you
Right,
think, no, I can't watch that. That's too much, whatever,
right.
There really wasn't like much. There wasn't that in between kind of like vibe that I got.
No, I haven't met anyone who was like, yeah, it's okay. It's always been, yeah, I love it. It's my jam, or I hated that. I never got it. I didn't watch it. So yeah, and that's fine. I mean, that's why we are all different and what makes the world go around, they say. So but yeah, I mean, it is a dark story, obviously. I mean, you get past some of the odd characters and the bizarro scenes, and I mean, it's a very dark story, and it's horrific. But sexual abuse by a family member is horrific, and but it's not uncommon, and so there's something about putting that you know trauma story in this mystical context of this battle of good and evil that I think it allows people, whether you are a survivor or you are just learning about it, it allows you to engage with this plight of a victim because you're in a dreamscape in some way, a nightmarescape sometimes, but a dreamscape. So it gives people a distance to like engage, whether it's through themselves or through empathy for others, I think.
Well, another thing that's interesting, I think when you've had a hit on your hands when people start paying tributes to it, you
Yeah.
know, doing homages.
Hmm.
Like for instance, when you get featured in The Simpsons, I think you've kind of made it, haven't you? You
Absolutely.
know,
Right.
and there was a scene where they did a kind of Twin Peaksy Red Room thing with Homer Simpson,
Right.
and they're all talking backwards and stuff, and he's in there. It's just hilarious. But that's kind of like when you realize that it's become part of that pop culture.
Right.
You know, usually that's a good thing. Like South Park or whatever it might be, do a tribute to you. Often people say, "Ah, I've made it now." You know,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely like when you're a Peaks fan and you see it in other places, it's just like this like wink. You're like, yeah, that's right. And maybe not everyone who watched that episode of South Park or whatever caught it, but you did. And so it's like this little, s- I mean, not a tiny secret, but a little thing that you have in your pocket that feels pretty good. So, yeah.
Now, please tell me, because I've been asking a few people and no one has seen it yet. Did you ever see the episode of Psych?
I'm sorry, I did not. So
Oh, Lord. I'll eventually find someone who did, I'm sure.
I'm sure you will.
But they did
I'm
it
sorry.
was a series called Psych, American comedy kind of detective series. And they did an episode where they did a kind of tribute to Twin Peaks.
Mhm.
And to cut a long story short, they went to a town called Dual Spires, right? Kind of play on words.
Right.
And a lot of the inhabitants of this town were actors from Twin Peaks, playing different roles, but they were all
Right.
kind of weird and surreal.
Right.
And the music was like jazzy, like Badalamenti. Julie Cruz even sang the episode theme for it. It was purely Twin Peaks,
Like an
but
off-brand.
not in name, but it was.
Yeah, right.
And they had many of the people in it. They had Sherilyn Fenn in it. They had Cheryl
Oh,
Lee in it. They had Dana Ashbrook in it. They had Ray Wise in it. They had Lenny Von Dolan in it. They had Catherine Coulson, and she even had a log in it. Um, and
that's
it was really
wild.
good. It was really
Yeah,
good. But I haven't found anyone yet that actually watched it. It's quite
I don't
strange.
believe I've even heard of it until
And it
you.
was an American series, you know. And
Yeah.
I'm over here in the UK and I've seen it, and no one in America seems to have. So I'm kind of baffled by that, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
But worth checking out if you can. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll see if
It
I
was
can find.
very well made, and it was a real. Basically, I think the writers must have been Twin Peaks fans because all they knew all the references. They knew, they all the in jokes. They kept putting little jokes like sight jokes behind. You see little, you might see a little owl on a map, or something. They knew all the in references to throw
Right.
in.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So they
Yeah.
they must have definitely been fans. There's no way they weren't.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I think it's like I feel like Twin Peaks, like for writers, it's like I don't want to, it's like a writer's, you hear of a teacher's teacher. It's like that kind of dynamic. It's like this is the way you tell a story, where you can intersect reality and the surreal, and you can, you know, have some mysticism and a complete arc of humanity and really like dig into the human condition in a way that's not didactic. Like you are trusting your audience to like intuit and understand in a way without over explaining, and it's like you're leaving enough for the audience to like surmise what's happening, and it may be different for each person. And to me, that's the most powerful type of writing that there is, whether it's, just through books or screenwriting or just that visual storytelling. So, yeah, I mean, it's to me the pinnacle of storytelling is through Twin Peaks, and um, yeah, it's a lifelong fan. So, um,
so the music for you, Wendy, it's a huge. I mean, you've got the visuals, you've got the whole kind of look of it, really. But I find that the music is a massive part of it. Um, Without that music, it really wouldn't have the same effect.
I agree.
Really does heighten everything. It really does put the emotion in. It really does put the scares in.
Yeah.
Um, you know, that beautiful music by Angelo and David writing some too, but he's not really a musician, but he was conveying those ideas to Angelo, and Angelo interpreted it brilliantly.
Right.
Um,
Well,
but imagine what it would be like without that. Um, if it had a very
well,
different soundtrack, it would be a very different program, wouldn't it? Obviously. Um,
absolutely. I mean, it's that the music, the soundtrack, it imbues this like at the most appropriate times, a sense of dread, foreshadowing and just this ominous like presence like through the music. I mean, what's happening when the soundtrack changes, even if you're in another room, right? And it's playing, you feel it. It's very visceral with that. But then there's also, just some not I and you can correct me if you can think of something else, but I don't ever really feel that much lightness in the music. Even the love songs feel um melancholy, you know? Um, but they're still beautiful. So there's that beautiful sadness that's like the thread through the whole series, musically and also just in the story. So, yeah. Um, yeah, I just, the characters in Twin Peaks, again, like going back to like storytelling and just the writing, I love how realized the characters are and all the arcs that they go on. I mean, even Lynch and Frost like are really excellent at like duality and like making us realize that our holistic beings are not just one thing or the other. And that, I mean, we have Laura who's, she's like doing Meals on Wheels and she's tutoring Johnny Horn and she's charming everyone. It's like there's a part of her she's trying to do everything really good, but then she's also deeply wounded and she has this like anguish and turmoil, and so she finds relief through risky sex and drugs. And so there's this complete person that you see, and you don't just see, oh, this is a bad person. You see a whole person with her. You see a whole person with Agent Cooper too, although he comes in with this like, knight in shining armor, charging in, and you feel like he's like a hero, but then like as the story unfolds, you realize that Cooper has secrets too, and he's got fatal flaws, and Cooper didn't always do the right thing every time. And then you see that little chink where Cooper is, there was a weakness there, and something either came out of him or went in. So that whole like perception of humanity, like that the light and the dark and each person, each character in that series, like for me, made me just like have a little more like compassion to myself, like, oh, I made a bad decision, but so did Agent Cooper. Or I mean, maybe not that simple, but just like that portrayal of how we are stumbling through life or dancing through life at the same time was just really impactful. And the way it's, again, like the way it's told in the story is just unbelievable, honestly. The only person I think is, and I think in season three, we see Ben Horn slightly redeemed, but he's the most charming degenerate. Like, all through the first two seasons, like he never tries to do anything good. I and then it's like in season three, I think he's just mellowed out a little bit, and I don't know that he's has had like a change of heart of anything, but he just doesn't seem as I don't know, willing to take risks or something. So
Interesting that transition of his kind of character from. I mean, because interestingly, that last time that before we see him in season three, um, we he is possibly either hospitalized or presumed dead after after he hit the fireplace at the
right.
end of season two. We don't see him again. So
Right.
everyone, so for 25 years, we don't know if Ben's dead or not until
Right.
he suddenly pops up in season three and think, ah, he's alive and well.
He
You know?
recovered. He was
And
too
maybe
mean.
that knock on the noggin, as they say, maybe that's what mellowed him.
Maybe,
Huh?
maybe so.
So in
Maybe
a
it took
sense, maybe Doc Hayward knocked some sense into him.
needed
You know,
to.
for want of a
He,
better word.
yeah, I mean, it's like obviously Leland's trespasses are egregious. But Ben was right there with him. So um, and the thing with Leland, again, it's like you're getting into like sometimes I have felt that like blaming Bob for Leland's abuse is a little bit of a scapegoat. I mean, I understand that we're trying to frame things in a way that people can understand, like why somebody would behave in this way. Um, and so in some ways it brings us some peace to think that like a demonic force has overtaken this person and that's why he would do this. But, that's not always really the case. But I always wondered, like, I always would think about instead of like being possessed, like an outside force moving in, maybe there's just like, again, like a chink in the armor where an inside force moves out somehow and connects to something else. So I don't know. It's just, um, yeah, I
All the,
really am into the
oh,
characters.
sorry, Wendy. Yeah, all these all these references you get too. The recurring references to uh, there's a darkness in the woods. All this stuff. It's There's mysticism, isn't there? There's magic. There's
Right,
darkness. There's threat. There's everything in this place.
right,
Right? The Bookhouse Boys' secret kind of club. When they kind of welcome Coop into the fold, um, and they do all the little secret signs they
uh,
got and all this kind of. But they say about the woods. The woods get
right,
referenced a lot. That those old woods. There's something dark there. There's this kind of thing. There's a
right,
force there. Of
right,
course, he finds out later on, to his depth, to his peril, what really lies there.
right,
The
right,
opening to this other world.
right.
The Black Lodge, as it were, and the White Lodge too, which I think we see in season 3. I'm assuming, I still think that's the White Lodge.
Yeah, right. It's yeah,
You know,
yeah. It's
it looks like it's a force for good, as far as I'm concerned.
yeah, I think so. It's, but like I do love that places hold atmospheres in Twin Peaks and like you feel that too like when if you travel like places have a mood an atmosphere or like and places are marred by unspeakable evil like that seems to linger in places that have experienced devastating events. So yeah, yeah. So it's just interesting that the woods in Twin Peaks have harbor that sort of just nightmare sort of thing going on there. But they're pure characters, I think, in Twin Peaks too. I mean, when I think of like, like Andy and Lucy and Hawk and Margaret, like they seem to like possess purity, like mostly purity. I mean, and they end up being you know, like agents of good. I mean, Andy finally gets the gun right and shoots it at the right time, and then later on rescues who I think was maybe Ronette in another form. I'm not sure in season 3 when he brings her down from the mountain. And then of course Lucy becomes a marksman too in season 3. But just like I do love that there are these like especially with Andy and Lucy just being these like simple savants in some ways, just like they seem very simple, but there's just like an intense power that shows up and can go through them like unobstructed when needed. And I love that. Like they're just so cool. So, and Dougie, I'm going to talk about Dougie because I know that people like got really frustrated with Dougie, but I adored Dougie. Um, I thought Dougie was a character or a person, and I've been around people like this that even though the communication is awkward or non-existent, like there's something about their energy and their presence that brings out the best in you. And I think that's what Dougie did. Like he just was everywhere he went, even though he was around like criminals and degenerates and all that. It was like he would bring out their best and like they were trying to help him and they didn't know why, I mean, it was just it was something about his presence compelled them to be a better person. And I love that. And I know everybody wanted Cooper to come back and I did too, and when he did come back, it was like, oh, but Yeah, but then of course I thought too with Dougie being like this agent of good and then like splitting a being into Mr. C, which was evil distilled. I just really thought that was an interesting like duel between the two, complete good and complete bad of the same person divided into two sentient beings. It was just I loved it. So anyway, I'm a Dougie fan.
It was interesting also, those 25, that 25-year period,
Mhm.
when they came back, you have two different strands of things going on, as it were. You've got the good coop,
Mhm.
um, who is the good coop is basically Dougie.
Mhm.
Dougie, the real Dougie, is in the red room
Mhm.
and he gets shrunk.
Yeah.
That was Dougie. Um,
Yeah.
but he gets Cooper gets transported um, into Dougie's world, as it were,
Yep.
and
Mhm.
everyone thinks he's Dougie, but he's
Mhm.
not. He's this kind of almost comatose. I mean, he moves, he's just kind of out of it. But that's Cooper.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
Cooper. Um,
Right.
and then you've got the doppelganger Cooper that we see,
Right.
of course, the one.
Right.
Um, but what's interesting is that they've both been going at the opposing ends of a long, long-term plan to
Mhm.
achieve a goal. So Cooper's having to go through all these things as Dougie, kind of almost drugged up, to get to where he needs to get to the point where sees Laura,
Right.
Carrie Page, or whatever, and kind of conclude that arc. And Bad Coop is plotting his end and getting all these people to help him to get to where he needs to go
Right.
to so it's interesting, those two,
Right.
the two different ends. Bad Coop is getting people to kind of like Chantel and Huck, she's got all these kind of people killing for him, so
Yeah.
his hands aren't bloodied or
I love
anything.
them. They're some of my
And you've got
favorites.
Cooper, who everyone thinks is Dougie, being helped along by all these good Samaritans to get from A to B to C to D. It it's just really cleverly plotted,
Right. Because then
you know.
Cooper has the Mitchum brothers, which
Yeah.
are fantastic. And one of my favorite things about The Return. Like I adored them so much. I loved all of it. Like, yeah. Um, I will say with the return, like I went in like I appreciated the threads from season one and season two. Like, I was glad that was there. But I was also like I really wanted to be open-minded and just like accept what was happening. Like I didn't want to put my preferences or what I thought should be on that art. Like, and I always appreciate when an artist just does whatever the hell he or she wants. Like this is the statement I'm making. And whether it challenges me to like it or I immediately fall in love with it, I always appreciate that intent. And I think that's what was going on with the return. And so it was fine to me that it wasn't just like an extended season of the first two. But yeah, so I just want to get that out there.
So your impressions on, I must ask you, I must bring this up. Your impressions when you saw Fire Walk with Me. I mean, that's a very different beast
Yes,
in many ways
absolutely.
from the series. I mean, I imagine a lot of people were probably quite shocked at how different it was, the style of it, because it was more adult, it was darker, an awful lot
Yeah,
darker,
yeah,
and it really delved into obviously the last week of her life,
right.
and you really do see what she went through very, very visually. Um, so what kind of impact did that have on you when you first saw that, Wendy?
Well, I think you get little bits of that violence and that intensity in season one and season two. Specifically, the scene where Bob is dancing with Maddie. Like, I am shocked that that was ever on TV because that is like a repulsive scene and a lot it's hard to watch. Like and again it's not subtle at all, but it doesn't, it's it's not explicit, but it's just the energy around it is so horrific. Um, so so some of those threads, from that season, from some of the scenes in the series, like are there. So Fire Walk with Me obviously was you have less of the good nature, Andy and Lucy and some of that lighthearted humor. Um, but yeah, I mean, I remember probably having my mouth open most of the time, but also not completely shocked. Yeah.
I mean, there was it was really I think it was much more it wasn't very light.
No,
It was incredibly heavy, you know. But again, it kind of had to be, didn't it, really, because of the subject matter it was tackling. It
right.
couldn't really be all laughs and
It would be
lightheartedness.
inappropriate to be.
So the quirkiness you might have seen in the series one and two was kind of absent for this film,
Right.
which is probably why they didn't have those actors that were associated more with the quirkiness involved in the film,
Right.
because I think it could kind of like may take divert too much, I
I
think.
agree. Absolutely agree.
Yeah. So that's probably why although they did film a few scenes, but they were deleted.
Right.
Um, so, and I can kind of see why that would have been the case, because if because they really want to focus on just Laura Palmer's last
Right.
few days of living.
Well, I mean,
You
it's
can't
absolute
really,
horror. I mean, that is absolute horror.
yeah, you know, you can't
Yeah.
really have too many comedic moments in that kind of
No.
environment. But the effect it had on me, I think, was very visceral. It was like, wow, it was quite shocking in places. Even though as you said earlier, Wendy, the Maddie scene, the killing of Maddie, still is unsettling, I think.
Very. Yeah. Mhm.
After 30 odd years or more, it's not lost any of its punch.
I
No.
agree.
And you would not get away with that now, I don't
No,
think.
I don't
On
think so.
prime time television at a certain time of night, they wouldn't show something like that, I don't
Oh,
think.
mm-mm.
I mean, she's being punched in the face and all sorts of things, you know. They just wouldn't happen now. You couldn't show violence like that against a woman, rightly so. I mean, we've moved on a lot, but it was of its time. But it still is very, very unsettling. Um,
Right.
the but it's the build up to that scene that's very unsettling. You start getting a sense of foreboding before the killing even happens,
Yeah.
and that just builds, that momentum builds and until the reveal that it's Leland, Leland Bob doing this, and then all hell breaks loose, and then we go to the roadhouse and all the rest of it. The
Right.
whole scene is just tremendously well done.
I agree.
You know,
It is, I think that whole sequence is, I mean, obviously it is like the lead up to the big reveal, right? Who killed Laura Palmer. So, but even Maddie's visions, she sees the blood on the carpet early on. So, I mean, something terrible is going to happen to Maddie as soon as she like enters the world. You just don't know exactly how until that moment. And you're like, holy shit. Like, because you've been thrown Ben Horn, like he's just been arrested, and you like have all these little like red herrings that you're chasing after. And the truth is, none of us want to believe that that's who the killer is. Nobody wants to believe that. But the owls are not what they seem. So,
you never want to believe it's someone that's a close family member, do you?
no,
It's your parent that's doing this. No one ever wants to think that.
no,
Um, because Leland, um, when he is Leland, I mean, sometimes it's very difficult to tell who he is
Right,
because he switches so quickly. He can
right.
be Bob one minute. I mean, he looks like Leland, but he can be have Bob
Right.
characteristics, you know.
And let's
Um,
just give Ray Wise a big shout out right now because
yeah,
he's
yeah,
looking
absolutely. I
incredible.
mean, he's brilliant actor. That he's such a brilliant actor.
I mean, come on, it's
That
incredible.
switching from Bob to Leland like that, is just pretty amazing. How he can change, so quickly. All in the facial expressions.
Yeah,
The dropping of the face, looking down like that. He just changes.
yeah,
And oh man, and
yeah. Sorry,
yeah,
I
it was
interrupted.
really good.
Yeah,
Yeah, go on.
yeah. Please go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, Wendy. Yeah, was there particular points that you wanted to bring up, Wendy? Because I think you were making a few notes, weren't you? Yeah.
I did. I mean, I was just thinking, about the characters and, just again, like how for me it was just a good like oh, I know what I want to talk. I want to talk about Mark Frost for a second. Because I feel like I don't think that Mark Frost is underappreciated at all. I do think Lynch, grabs the spotlight more than Frost, but I will just say like Frost writing is so incredible. And I early on I won't bring it out. I like have this old copy of the List of Seven that I've read several times that he wrote. I can't remember when this was published, but like, again, it's like you, once you go down the Twin Peaks rabbit hole, you go down deep. But this was an interesting book because it is a supernatural, like Holmesian epic story, which sounds pretty familiar to Twin Peaks. But I love that story. But when he published the Secret History books, which I have here, I'm not going to bring them out, but um, the dossiers on the characters, like backing up, like I don't always think that we need an exposition or an explanation of what we see. Like I think especially in Lynch terms, like you're intuiting things. Like you don't have to understand it, but you're feeling it on a different level. But however, I thought with the dossiers that having the character backgrounds like didn't take away from your experience, but added like more texture to it. Like I adored those books. I just thought they were just fantastic. And I still reread them, like I'll watch the series and I'll reread the books and then it's always fresh and you always like are like, oh, something new every time. But yeah, I just again want to um, I just admire Mark Frost so much and really appreciated that he published those books. I felt like it was a big gift to all the fans to have that. So, um,
I agree about Mark Frost. He does often sadly get a little bit lost, in terms of acknowledgement a lot.
Mhm.
Even though he had a big involvement, certainly within the first two series, you know,
Mhm.
and his contribution should not be, you know, overlooked at all. He was tremendous talent, and he really did steer the way for that series and kept it going.
Yeah,
Really
I
incredibly
agree.
important. He directed a great episode too, the end of first season when Cooper gets shot.
Yeah,
Um, so he was actually quite good as a director as well as a writer.
right.
I know he's
I
more
love
known as a writer, but
cameos. So, every now and then you get a Mark Frost cameo and you're like,
yeah, yeah.
oh,
You get that
yeah,
in the original series and in season three, yeah.
yeah,
And I have to
yeah.
admit, when he was in season three, I didn't even realize that was him.
Walking through the woods,
Yeah, I
that
thought,
one.
who's that
Yeah,
guy there with the dog? And then
yeah,
afterwards, I found, Christ, that was Mark Frost. I
yeah.
didn't even know, you know?
And that's the thing about it too. Like every character, you're always like peering in. Who is that?
Yeah,
Where have I seen them, and where will I see them again? So,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah, it's fascinating. But I don't really remember the how it came about. If like Welcome to Twin Peaks had the dossier contest in conjunction with Mark Frost's books, and so they had a contest that you could write your own dossier. on a minor character that wasn't in the books. And so I wrote the dossier on Beulah. I don't know if you ever had a chance or ever read that or not, but so there was I well, let me back up. So when the first time, like the first season of season three, or the first episode of season three, when we go, Mr. C is driving through the woods and he comes to the cabin and he walks in and you know, it's just a very interesting place. It feels like a hotel like outside of the Black Lodge or something. You know, it doesn't really feel like it's or not a hotel, but like a place like on the way to the Black Lodge. It doesn't really feel like in reality. And then, you know, he walks in and Beulah comes out. And I just remember like when she came out and like her presence filled the screen and there was just all this like mystery around her. First thing I was like, okay, I'm hooked. I bought in right now. I'm in. Like from this moment on. And then I was just like, I just want to know more about her, like who she is and like why she's here and just like because she just was just so interesting to me. And then of course she didn't have another part through the rest of the series. But when that contest came out, I was like, well, I don't know what her story is, but I will write it, you know? And so that's sort of how we get to a few years ago, I guess almost 2 or 3 years ago, Nick Petros from Ludovico Films contacted me about writing a screenplay for a short film based on that dossier. So from there, that's where we come to Send in the Owl. So mhm.
So is it set around the same time period it's meant to be
it
as the events on screen happened, you know?
so it's actually between the two
Oh,
series.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's there. I can't say a whole lot about it.
No.
But
No.
that is the time period about it. What I will say is like entering into this world as a fan and then like playing a little part of it, writing a little part of the mythology around it and I interviewed Kathleen, like when Nick contacted me, I was like, I'd really like to talk to Kathleen before I write this. I would like to get a sense of who she is. And so that led into a friendship with Kathleen, who, you know, I think she's a fascinating individual. I think, is a mystic, and just really her life, like, embodies like a Twin Peaks ethos in a lot of ways, I think. And so like it's incredible that she's in there. It's incredible that I've had the privilege to talk to her and consider her a friend. And so I had the interview like we had several conversations. We just talked yesterday. And so that's helped form the script in ways, not in just like in factual ways, but just energetic ways in the way she thinks and just her power and her energy. I think I tried to like pull that in to what I was writing, but yeah, I lost my train of thought. So let me look at, but yeah, so the script we want to begin principal photography this year. We have a Facebook page for it, and I believe we're going, oh, I know what it was. Yeah, okay. So we have a Facebook page for it, and I think we're going to begin like I don't know what it's called, Indiegogo or something, a fundraiser to finish up some of the funding for it. And all of that will be on Facebook under the page. I don't know, in a month or so. I'll have to ask Nick, but sometime in the near future. But the exciting thing is, and particularly exciting for me was Harry Goaz is involved with it. When I sent Nick the script, he sent it to Harry, and Harry Harry, like this, like Harry read the script and agreed to be a part of it. And so that to me was just like, I was just absolutely, I don't know, shattered. I don't know, like just like it was insane to me. It was like the best thing that has ever happened to me. So he's on board, and of course Kathleen, and we have three of the main woodsmen. We have Robert Broski, Stuart Strauss, and Christian Calloway. And so I mean, like having some like an OG Twin Peaksy person on there, and then some in series three, like on board too, feels pretty validating and good. So yeah, I'm excited.
It really does sound good. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. The results of that. That'd be awesome. Whenever that
Yeah.
might be, you know. But, hopefully it will all be, put together and it'll be successful in its own way. That'd be lovely, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so I'll definitely put a link to that. Well, any link that you give me, I'll put it in
Okay.
underneath the video description. So that
Oh, thank you. Thank you very
try and give
much.
it a bit of a push for you, in my own little way, you know.
I appreciate it. We
But
all will.
I'm very interested to hear how it goes. I'll be fascinated because I know Kathleen as well, and she's a friend, and I'd be very interested to see her return
Mhm.
as that character because one of the wonderful things about those characters that only appeared briefly, really briefly, is that you want to know more about them,
Mhm.
but you never get a chance to because
Right.
they're there and they never come back again.
Right.
You know, that was the one and only scene she was in the whole entirety of the series.
Right. It was.
Thinking, who
Mhm.
is this woman? What's her connection with with Coop? How does she know him? A bad Coop, I mean. How does she
Right.
know him? Because she definitely knows him when he walks in,
Right.
and he knows her. Um, and Ray and Daria and all these, all this criminal underworld kind of thing.
Yeah. It's a syndicate.
What's her story? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the thing. I mean, yeah, that's what I wanted to know, and that's what I tried to create in that in the one form of a dossier. And then later in the script I fleshed it out quite a bit, and it was, like I said, really just an absolute thrill to like talk to her and to write from that, and to just, to be a part, just to have a sliver of the story, like as a part of me too. It feels really good. So anyway,
Are you able to reveal? I don't mean about the plot or anything like that, but are you able to reveal? Has any of it been shot?
I
Did you get
no,
to
we
any of
have
that
some
stage?
narration recorded,
Yeah.
and I think that's about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. That's cool. Yeah. It's just interesting to see how it's kind of developing at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. These things always take a lot longer. I'm learning this, it's like when
Yeah.
I wrote, I think it's been, I can't, like I said, 2 or 3 years since I wrote the script. And I'm like, I don't really forget about it, but it's like, I've, I'm writing other things right now. I've got another screenplay I'm very close to finishing. And, so yeah. So then you go like, oh yeah, this is still here. Like, this is still something that will bloom hopefully very soon. So, but yeah, yeah.
I think you've got a lot of people intrigued for this. I'm certainly am one of them. So I can't
Mhm.
wait to see the results of this, and I wish you and the team all the best with it. I really do,
Thank you. Thank you
Wendy.
very much. I
It's a
appreciate
wonderful thing that there's so many creative people in the Twin Peaks fandom. You know, it's staggering to me actually how many people I talk to that are either writers, musicians, artists, painters, some kind of creative kind of
it. Hmm.
endeavors. It seems to bring out a lot of that in people, I think. It seems to, I find that. Do
I
you
agree.
find that? Yeah.
I feel like, that the whole ethos of it, and just like the universe, like it captured like pure flow, like pure creative flow. I mean, there were, I mean, obviously there's some little missteps, like we all make them, but it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of the body of work. Like it just feels like someone tapped into something and made something magical happen. And as an artist or a writer or creator, like that's the ultimate dream to to be that conduit of the otherness, wherever it comes from. And so when you see it executed, you just bow down, and you're like humbled and inspired at the same time. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more, Wendy, really. I find it amazing that there's so many gifted people out there that I've met purely through Twin Peaks. That's how I met them. I probably would never have come across these people otherwise, only because of a mutual love for something that I connected with them, and then suddenly find out that an awful lot of them are incredibly creative people, and
Mhm.
I just love that. I think that's fantastic, and I think a lot of it is born from their love for the show, and it obviously is a huge inspiration to them, you know.
Mhm.
And therefore they have these pursuits, they go down these avenues, but the influence is there. You see it through their artwork, you see it through their music, whatever they're doing, or film, or whatever it might be, it
Yeah.
comes through. And I just think it's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, which leads me neatly on, unless there's any more points you want to raise, Wendy, before we wrap this up, but please do bring it. Have you got any more things you want to talk
I think
about?
that's all for this time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I mean,
maybe next time we can talk when the film's out, and we can talk openly
that'd be
about the
excellent.
film without any spoilers or anything like that.
Okay.
I mean, we'll be able to talk freely, and we'll be able to do spoilers. That's what I'm trying to
Yep.
say.
Excellent. I would
Yeah.
love that.
That would be great. So keep me updated with it and everything, won't you? Please.
Absolutely. Thank you,
Yeah,
Frank.
and I really do wish you well with that,
Thank you
and
very much.
all the team, the director and producers, and the actors and everyone.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting project, that I think. Um, I'm really looking forward to that.
Thank
You
you.
know.
We are too.
So what we'll do, Wendy, is the final question I always ask everyone to wrap this up is this. Okay. So Wendy, um, why do you love Twin Peaks?
Oh, well, I do feel like our whole conversation has been like a testament of my love to Twin Peaks. But I think if I summarize it, I think Twin Peaks has been just like a compass for me. Like it's led me to my favorite friends, lovers, literature, music, art, films. And it's led me to like just a deeper understanding of humanity, and just empathy and embracing the human condition as we are. And, I think it's like the quintessential hero's journey. There's not a better hero's journey than the Twin Peaks journey. And it allows us to work out, our hopes and our fears and anxieties in this like dreamscape that feels safe that we can bring out and live. So, yeah, I just love it. Oh, I have one more thing. I have this. It's got the cassette inside. I've never opened it. Like, so.
I think I may have had that once. I can't. It got lost somewhere, but I think I did have the audio. I mean, I've heard
Yeah,
it since. I think it's been, available elsewhere, but
yeah.
that's the actual the actual
This was
My
from
Life, My Tapes
1980.
book,
Yeah,
audio
yeah,
reading. Yeah.
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 And
Yeah.
it's, oh, wait, let me open it up.
Ah, brilliant. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I mean, I
okay.
had the book. Do you remember the book? The author,
I
the actual
did. I have,
Scott
yes, I
Frost
think,
wrote it. Mark
uh,
Frost's brother. Yeah.
yeah. And then I'll,
I loved
obviously
it.
Laura's
Yeah.
diary.
I've
Sorry.
got that one, that version with the red cover on it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I didn't read it when it first came out, so I got the second
Yeah.
for
That's the
the,
second print run, I think. Yeah. That's the one
um,
I have. Yeah.
yeah.
And I was racking my brain actually as to what the original cover we had of it. Maybe it was different in America, but the British version of it, the first print run of Laura Palmer's diary, was the famous picture of the wrapped in plastic face.
Oh,
Her.
yeah.
You know, when they
Yeah.
pull it back and you see her face with the little stones on it. That was the image they had on the front.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it
don't
was that
remember. I
image.
don't know if I noticed or was aware of when it came out first, but then when the
Yeah,
reissue came out, I think I was like, oh, so
yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. But just bring up briefly about Jennifer Lynch. You know,
Yeah.
writing that diary. I mean, that diary was so brilliant.
It,
I mean, it goes really into much more deeper into it would because she's writing in it's private diary. You really get a
right.
much more deeper thoughts and her personality comes through Laura
I
than you
agree.
would have done on screen. Um, I find it really incredibly fascinating. You
It
know,
is fascinating, and it plays that same role like the dossiers. Like it's an exposition, but it doesn't it adds texture and layer to your experience. It doesn't take away from it. It doesn't negate what you felt or saw. It adds to it. And so that's that. This diary, it reminded me like also of like I brought out all the books around Twin Peaks. Go Ask Alice reminded me of The Secret Diary. These two, like, just these visceral, honest diaries of desperate girls on drugs and making mistakes and not making it through. So, yeah, I mean, it's really just incredible that any Gen X teenager made it alive. So, so, anyway,
because when Jennifer Lynch wrote that, she was almost about the same age, wasn't she?
I,
No, I mean, she was only like a barely young adult, I think. She late teens, maybe, quite young still, I think.
yeah, I
You
mean, she
know,
was probably close
yeah.
to that time too, or that passion where there's something about like again, I was talking about the coming of age period, but there's just like this insightful wisdom, and you're still an idealist mostly. Some of us have already gotten jaded in our teens for good reasons, but um there's just some weird insight that you have that hasn't been like polluted by the world yet at that time, even if it's just, incisive and like a take on other things. But yeah, so it was a good time to write that book for her. So yeah.
And so my we've done it a bit differently. The flip
I'm
because
sorry, I know. I was like,
'cause I just thought of this last thing to ask you, and it's like, oh, I have to
it's an
do that, you know.
epilogue.
So um, so there we are. Yeah. So it's going to be your last question was
Okay.
earlier. Your answer was earlier, but never mind. That's fine. This thing that I do find with these shows, we go off in all sorts of directions anyway, so it doesn't really matter. You know, it's quite free form kind of.
I'm pretty bad at following rules, Frank.
No, no, no. I don't really have any. I don't like imposing any bloody rules. I hate that. I'm a bit of an anti-authoritarian person, so
Okay.
I don't like giving rules out to anyone because I don't like taking them myself. So so yeah, it's pretty easy going. This really,
Mhm.
yeah. It's just been really lovely to talk to you about all
Thank
this.
you so
It's been
much.
great.
I've enjoyed this so much too. And again, okay, one more thing. Since I am showing books, I
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
mention my English teacher. He's an accomplished poet, and he's the one that got me onto Twin Peaks. So I just want to show, like, he has some books, The Religions of the Blood, World Within the World. He's an excellent poet, and Necessary Emotions. His name is Sam Rasnick. He's on Twitter and Blue Sky. That's all I know. But yeah, I'd like to thank him because he really helped shape my life. So
So big up for Sam Radnick.
yeah,
Yeah.
big ups. Yeah.
Give you a little plug there.
Thank
So yeah, good luck with all that. Yeah, yeah.
you.
Um, Thanks again, Wendy.
Thank
It's
you
been
so
it's
much.
been
I had
awesome.
so much fun. I really enjoyed this. I appreciate you having me on your show.
And thank you, obviously, everyone for watching it again. I really do appreciate you taking the time to press that play button and watch us and support this. And I really hope you've been enjoying it so far. Um, but until we meet again, down the road, I have to say these immortal words to finish this. We will see you in the trees.